you working? What kind of work do you do? What is it you want to do when you grow up?
I just interviewed somebody that got Mark Cuban to invest in their company after they went live on Shark Tank. And this person is the person that's usually across the table from me, Brian Bloom. In this episode, we're going to explore his journey from starting at a bakery to then working with the Spurs to then taking an entrepreneurship class, launching a startup that he raised $1.5 million for and then failed. You're going to learn how to raise money, how to build a startup, what happens when you go on Shark Tank, and then how to go viral. It's a lot of good shit in this episode, so give us 45 minutes. But before you give me those 45 minutes, I need 45 seconds to do one quick thing. If you leave a quick review on Apple or Spotify, you see this hat, you see the one I'm wearing, I will send you one. All I need you to do is leave a 5-star review, leave an actual comment saying whatever it is that you like about the podcast. If you could drop it in those notes. And if you do, I will send you one of these hats, specifically if you're in the US. But it'd mean the world to us because we just want to keep doing this. We want to keep doing research and record these episodes, but I need some proof. So when you do leave this review, I need you to screenshot it. Send it to me, send it to Brian, send it to podcast@marketingexaminer.com. And if you're one of the first 20 people to do it, then I'm going to send you this hat, or we got multiple colorways. That's my 45-second rant. If you do that for me, then this next 45 minutes of this podcast is going to be awesome. So Broncos country, let's ride. I want to start off with one, how'd you and I have similar backgrounds of, we both played college sports, our entire life wrapped around sports, and for your end, basketball, for me, football. And then we both made our way into marketing and entrepreneurship and kind of this tech scene and startup scene. And that's a weird transition.
Yeah.
Right. It's not the normal transition. So how did you go from being a college basketball player to then making your way into startups and tech and marketing?
Yeah. It all started with taking, ironically enough, an entrepreneurship 101 class.
Yeah.
So,
which is weird.
Yeah, I know. Because every entrepreneur tells you not to go to college. Yeah. But I had an amazing professor named Dr. Luis Martinez. And Trinity, despite not necessarily producing a lot of dogs, had a really good entrepreneurship program. And, a lot of companies had actually been pretty successful from it for the previous few years. So it was a little bit juiced when I got in there.
That's
There was a lot of hype about it. And I took a class in the spring of my sophomore year. And that class, the entire point is to create a lean business canvas, which is just outlining what is a product, who is it for, what does the market look like, what is your go-to-market strategy, some stuff like that. And the goal is by May, when the class is over, to have launched something with that product, with that idea. In the course of doing that, I got connected with another kid in class, and he had a great idea. His uncle, or like godfather or something, had actually been really directly involved with the launch of Crest White Strips. And so, if I remember correctly, that figure told my co-founder of that business, he told him that if there were one product in the oral care space that he wanted to create, it would be a chewing gum that cleans your teeth. So that was actually what led to the idea, is chewing gum that cleans your teeth. And we launched that product called Confident in 2016. And yeah, that was my first foray into e-commerce, into entrepreneurship. I was literally 21. I'm not even 21 yet. I was 20 years old. No clue, right? I mean, kind of some generic creativity and, just the dedication to get after it every day. But besides that, nothing.
I want to take it back though. And what, pun intended, what spurred you to take an entrepreneurship class?
Yeah, it was...
Because you have to be it has to pull you.
For sure.
You're not just going to do an entrepreneurship class for the hell of it.
No doubt. I mean, dude, I remember my first job was at a bakery, actually, in my senior year of high school.
Bakery Brian.
Yeah, Bakery Brian, Three Brothers Bakery. I made it 6 weeks. Ended up quitting because this 45-year-old dude that was making the same, $7.50 an hour minimum wage as me told me that I wasn't sweeping correctly. And I was like, bro, no way. I can't believe that just happened.
Threw a muffin at his ass.
Yeah, no, it was a bundt cake. But so that was my first working experience. And it was always the same thing, right? My parents instilled in me very early, like, you gotta go get a job, you gotta work. If you want to spend money, it's gonna be your money.
Yeah.
And from the get-go, it was, how can you get a job? So when I played basketball at Trinity University in San Antonio, and this is peak Spurs, right? Like, my senior year of high school, Spurs won the NBA championship. So I'm coming into San Antonio in 2014, and it was just, Spurs fever everywhere, hottest thing in town. And again, Trinity was not known for a lot of things, but it had a really strong sports management department. And I've been obsessed with sports my whole life. So I wanted to be an NBA GM. That was actually my original goal going to Trinity.
You could still do that though. I don't know if you want to do it, but you still have the potential to do that.
So
but keep going.
No, I mean, to that point, I thought about this quite a bit. You actually think about making the NBA. There's 400 spots every year. About 250 of those stay in the league year over year. Yeah. That's an incredibly difficult thing to crack into. And you can ignore just, the challenges of being a superhuman athlete, but just the raw numbers of it, it's extremely difficult to get into. There's only 30 NBA GMs. It's a very political game. If your family is not basketball royalty, it's very hard to get the nod. You got to be really well connected. And just
I don't know, because look at Eric Spoelstra, from video editor on the team, or like cutting up film tape or whatever, to head coach, 2 or 3 rings at this point, multiple finals appearances.
He got in and he was able to become Pat Riley's confidant.
For sure.
And I think he's probably one of the only examples of that of all time. But there's always ridiculous outliers to anything.
But take me back to Spurs and what you did there.
And so I was able to get an internship at the Spurs. So I was an intern in their PR department. And 2 guys that had a massive impact on me back then were Chris Davis and Jordan Howenstein. And Jordan was this, swaggy dude. Like he was just like the liaison for the players in the media. He would just, whenever the media would be like clamoring to get in the locker room, Jordan's like, "Nah, dude, you guys can't come in yet." And I mean, dude, this was peak Spurs, right? They were just best team in the West. Like, media was crazy. And so I got to be an intern under those guys. And my job was essentially to hold the microphone while players were getting interviewed, hold the microphone with all the media, and then immediately sprint back to our room and transcribe what was on the recording. And this is the most like automatable ChatGPT shit of all time now, but and record it and then prepare quotes for the media so that they could turn around their story faster. So that was pretty much my job. But I mean, it was dope because I got to be in the locker room with every major NBA star at the time. Especially you think about the Warriors, LeBron. Like I got to like be right next to these guys.
You were able to do that with LeBron and any of those players? Wow. That's
cool. I did like a little going away post on my Instagram, and the angle that I was able to take a picture of LeBron at is in that folder.
That's sick. I didn't know that. I've never seen that. You've never told me this. So this is cool information.
It was cool. There was one story. The Cavs had just gotten. I mean, this is a year after they won the title. And so the Spurs are still pretty good. This is Kawhi becoming, one of the best players in the NBA. And the Spurs beat the hell out of them, like 35 piece.
Yeah.
And one of the reporters asked LeBron, they say, the Cavs have just slipped to 4th in the East. LeBron, are you worried that your streak in making the finals as the only team to represent the East is going to come to a close? And LeBron just kind of like looks at the guy like he's an idiot. Dead silent room. I laugh at LeBron's reaction. Dead silent room. And LeBron like points to me and he's like, he gets it.
No way.
Yeah, it was sick. Yeah.
That's a clip.
Yeah, it was cool. It was cool.
So cool.
And he was so goated for that too. Like at the time, just like, he's like, you really don't think I'm making it out the East? Come on.
Did that moment put LeBron over MJ for you? You know how you could have like a little moment where it just puts that guy over somebody else?
Dude, I don't know. I've always been kind of team MJ on that side of things, but that's could be an entire podcast.
Yeah. But what spurred you to the entrepreneurship class? What out of that, that scenario and interning with the Spurs and working with them and getting to do those things was like, I'm made to do X, Y, Z?
Yeah, I think, just seeing what it took to become. So there's Tom James was above Chris Davis and Jordan Howenstein, and he was like 55. And Tom was probably, doing really well, working a dream job, traveling all the time. But I knew he wasn't really making a ton of money. And I knew that it had taken him like 25 years to like get to that point. And it started to make me think about sort of the sacrifice that comes with building a career in the traditional way, which is, pay your dues. And I'd never been someone that had a lot of patience to that. And I kind of, in looking around for what was that next thing, found the entrepreneurship class and was just intrigued. It
Interesting.
really wasn't any sort of,
Just a curiosity at that point.
yeah, it was an elective. And, you know, I would really credit Dr. Martinez with the way that he positioned how magical it is to build a company and what that journey looks like, with spurring me to go after it.
And did you feel any of that magic when you started to build a chewing gum company where
Absolutely. It was,
where, you know,
it was amazing, dude. Yeah.
what led from that? So like, because it is a good idea.
Yeah.
I chew a lot of gum. I would love if it was cleaning my teeth instead of what I hear. It's like, oh, it's giving you cavities if you're
Yeah.
chewing, you know, Trident gum or whatever. So
Yeah.
where did it go from this idea to, did you actually launch a product? What was the evolution?
Oh, we launched the hell out of a product. Yeah. So we ended up, there was a full formulation development. We had a manufacturer in Vancouver.
Were you guys funded? How did you get money to do this?
So we won a couple of pitch competitions at the school and then took that money to develop the product. From there, we had some initial traction and took it to a friends and family round.
What? How
And
much was it? 20, 30K or?
Quite a bit more. I think it was around 1.5 million.
Oh,
Yeah.
damn.
Yeah.
From pitch competitions.
No, that the pitch competitions was around 30K.
Okay.
And then product into sort of Amazon traction into
No, I'm
you know,
referring to like to
market
launch the
opportunity.
company, you guys had 30K.
Yes.
Okay.
Correct.
And then you
Yeah.
got to one.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah. And so, you know, basically took that 30K and, you know, turned it into a real product. Turned that product into some baseline Amazon sales, Shopify sales, you know, continue to grow it. It was really interesting. We initially thought that it was going to be a really strong B2B play. So we are going to go heavy into retail distribution. And the problem is at the countertops of a lot of gas stations and convenience stores. Think about, you know, when you go to Hudson News in an airport, there's Juicy Fruit, there's Five Gun, there's all these kind of entrenched players.
Yeah.
Those are super long lasting relationships between the distributor, the, you know, Mars Inc. that creates the product, and then the retail outlet. They have razor thin margins, but they work because there's so much
The
trust in that
volume.
relationship. And to disrupt that was really, really challenging.
Yeah.
So we thought, okay, what are some other markets that we could crack? And we settled on hotels and airlines and country clubs. And sort of like more basically anywhere where a premium amenity such as like a, hey, do you want to clean your teeth right now? You know, could be valuable after coffee, after a meal. You know, you're about to go meet some people at a networking event. And we settled on a lot of those things. Resounding feedback from all of them was that we don't want a gum because we don't want people taking it and then putting it under a table or putting it under a chair.
Interesting.
And so we had deals at the finish line with, you know, a lot of the biggest airlines in the world. I mean, some really powerful people were curious about this, but the challenge was always two things. It was making the margin work because it was a really expensive product, all things considered. It was a functional chewing gum. Like it actually worked. It reduced bacteria that caused gingivitis. It whitened teeth. Like there's some tangible benefits to this thing, to chewing it. And we had clinical trials done at the UT Health Science Center that proved all this stuff
That's
out.
sick.
But ultimately, they couldn't get over that. So we developed a mint product. And that was a huge pivot for the business, really successful. And that was sort of my first foray into a challenge, which was, okay, we have a mint product. We must now go sell it. How are we going to sell it? On me. Let's go figure it out.
Because were you heading growth or?
Yeah, I mean,
Marketing kind of
sales and
those-
marketing, you know,
Yeah.
we had a 3-person team and ultimately ended up, I mean, dude, I looked up every Marriott in the US. I looked up every Hyatt. I looked up every, you know, hotel, pulled list of golf clubs, country clubs. Like I was just cold calling.
Yeah.
And I would just say, hey, can I speak to whoever's in charge of your amenities department? Got a really exciting product that I'd like to chat with them about. And creating a funnel, you know, following up with people, touching base, like all this stuff just tracked in Google Sheets. We ultimately became, you know, a brand standard mint for JW Marriott hotels. We were working on Omni hotels. We were working on Hyatt, and it was going really well. And at the same time, Facebook ads were doing well. This is like 2018. Facebook ads were performing. That was when I got introduced to Meta and running ads like that. And then also Amazon was a big part of the business.
And what happened to it? I mean, getting to 1.5 million in sales, now then pivoting towards mints. What happened to the company? Why isn't it a $100 million company now?
You know, just some disagreements with the co-founding team about the direction. You know, the CEO wanted to go into a different space, which was CBD, and that didn't really align with sort of like the original vision. And so we kind of just parted ways from there. It's kind of the first time I realized that, you know, a really good product and good traction and good idea doesn't equate to automatic success. Something my dad told me all the time. Startups fail 95% of the time. What do you think is different about you? Of course, first one being so successful, having so much traction, great product. Every time I hand it to somebody, and it still fails, you know? And so, that was that first entrepreneurial experience.
With that first experience, looking back at it, what were some of the biggest learnings from growing a company with $1.5 million in sales and then it ultimately failing? Were there any hard lessons that you took into your next few ventures and the next things that you wanted to do?
For sure. I think one of them was leading with unit economics. We wanted to go into an industry that was razor thin margins, and we wanted to play in D2C, which is direct to consumer. And so, you know, we just had a different game than Five Gum or Juicy Fruit. Like we didn't have the retail presence. And also that was another thing. Don't ruffle feathers of a player that, you know, is entrenched in a space, because their distributors wouldn't even talk to us. We already have our gum category settled. We're not going to talk to anybody for 10 years. Our deal's not even negotiable. And you just go into it with the naiveness of like naivety, maybe. But you go into it thinking, you know, we'll just figure this out. And some things are not possible to be figured out. You cannot win in the gum business without retail. There are many CPG products, consumer packaged good products, that you cannot win without retail. And that's because your customer acquisition cost for a $8 item online, if you want to be profitable, that means you have to have like a $2 customer acquisition cost. It's not feasible. And so leading with unit economics would definitely be one. It was also the first time that I really saw marketing for what it was. Which is people's needs and desires more so than anything. You really have to appeal to self-actualization. Our product was very much so geared towards insecurities. You were insecure about your breath. You were insecure about the color of your teeth. You were insecure about maybe sometimes chewing gum is just a nervous tick that allows people to feel more comfortable in certain social situations. And so diving super deep into not just saying, hey, this gum helps you clean your teeth. You have to say, are you tired of having bad breath after coffee? Do you feel like your teeth are so stained after every coffee that you drink? Getting more specific with the situations and the specific outcome that our product would provide to solve that problem was my first experience with it. And, you know, it took me, it was extremely impactful to have that when I was young, you know, because those are lessons that I see. I've got 40-year-old marketers that don't know that shit. You know, I see that all the time. And so to kind of get that lesson up front, especially, dude, it was dollars in, dollars out. Obviously we raised money, but, you know, I was the one spending ads on Meta. There wasn't an agency. You know, there wasn't someone that I could point the finger at. If shit wasn't working, it was on me.
It was good for you at that age to learn, you know, what works in marketing, what really is marketing, because that is something that's going to impact nearly everything you've done since. And it's why you're successful. So from there, what was next? How did you find your next venture? Did you want to keep pursuing entrepreneurship, building a product where you're like, fuck all this drama, all this bullshit. I want to get a job. Where was your head at?
Yeah. So for a minute, man, there was a 6-month stretch where there was a lot going on. And my parents really wanted me to pursue a safer route. They wanted me to go to grad school. And so I was kind of preparing for the LSAT to go to law school. And I was working a entry level. Me as a lawyer.
That's crazy.
Questionable. You know, I was preparing for the LSAT and I was working an entry level sales job at this place called Home Advisor. And I got through the training in like 2 weeks of being there, and I couldn't do it. So, and the whole time I was kind of, you know, still doing that consulting stuff. And, you know, it sort of at the time, like my buddy Thomas Fields, who absolutely, you know, changed my life. And I'm so grateful for, is building this company called Grind Basketball. And it's kind of a fringe idea, right? An idea that someone like me might see the value in, but like a random person like really did not see the vision when it was just an idea. And it was a portable basketball rebounding machine. So the idea is that rebounding machines are very prevalent in the basketball world. They're at almost every high school, every training facility, every university. Oftentimes trainers will use them as a way to upsell people on their own programming.
Yeah.
Those products were 400 pounds, $10,000. So very difficult for a regular family to afford. Certainly
I
impossible
really
to
just
transport.
thought you hit us with like British money. Like those products was 400 pounds.
Oh yeah.
I was like, no.
no, 400 pounds, that would be slim. But yeah, so, you know, they were really bulky and expensive. And basically his idea was, you know, he wasn't able to afford one back in the day and he would have loved to. And so that's where he started from was, can I make the product that, you know, 15-year-old me needed and create that for hoopers across the country? He had seen me building the gum company for the whole time because me and him actually played AAU basketball together.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That's news to me.
Yeah. So we met in 2013 in high school. And so we connected on Instagram and our DMs were so funny, man. I went through them a few times and like, you know, especially after we had done some cool stuff and, you know, there's just like so much encouragement.
It's nostalgic too. Like to
So
go
nostalgic.
back 5 years later and be like, damn, we built this. And remember when we were talking about this?
Yeah. And you also don't even, you know, when you're in the moment, you know, it's 2017 and he's posting his logo for the first time. And I'm like, yo, this is sick. I'm not even thinking about it at the time. I'm not oh, I'm ever going to work on this. You know, so he ends up needing some help, some kind of founding team help, and asked me if I want to join him as kind of his founding marketing guy. And that was January of 2020. So we had at the time $0. I think Thomas had raised like $40,000 from like, you know, a couple of our first investors. And, you know, this is 6 months after the gum company for timeline's sake. And he had $40,000, just enough to set up a Shopify website. And one of our other marketing guys, Mo Elrod, who's an absolute OG, he used to work at And1. And so he was on the And1 streetball tour back in the day. And when he was there, he befriended the professor. So the professor, for those that don't know, is a very popular internet personality. He's really flashy basketball player, and he's able to go to Venice Beach, which has a bunch of courts, and challenge average Joes to a game of one-on-one, and then he just absolutely clowns them. And it's always really entertaining content. And so Professor's blown up as a YouTuber. He's got a huge audience. And so Mo was able to work with the professor on doing a release video with us where the professor posted it from his account. And so that video was scheduled to go live in March of 2020. And we were going to launch in March of 2020. I believe we posted the video on March 1st of 2020. And obviously what happened 11 days later, COVID strikes and everyone's like, holy shit, basketball's over. Nothing's going to happen. And that was crazy. It was a real gut check.
What was your position at Grind? Did you take on?
I was CMO, Chief Marketing Officer. But it was a very small team. So we had an engineer, we had Thomas, who was CEO. Thomas had engineering skills. And then I was sort of handling anything related to marketing.
And so you joined that team. Where did you guys get it to? Because you were there for 2.5, 3 years. Nearly?
Yeah, ended up being 3 full years. We did some cool stuff. I mean, we ended up, you know, selling out of our first batch of pre-orders. So we sold out of that. And then, you know, July of 2020, Thomas gets an email from ABC, basically letting him know that he'd been selected to participate on Shark Tank for that season. He had a great story. Like he tore his ACL 4 times. And, you know, self-taught mechanical engineer.
That's awesome.
And basically just got it out the mud. Like he was working 2 jobs at all times to support this 3rd job, which was the idea.
That's awesome.
And so, you know, it's a really compelling story. And obviously the product's very interactive. So, you know, the concept of having Mark Cuban go shoot a jumper on this thing was probably very appealing to the producers. He ends up filming the episode in September of 2020. But yeah, I mean, dude, like filming Shark Tank, and it's crazy because, you know, Thomas calls me after filming it and he's just grinning ear to ear, eating pasta in his hotel room. And I'm like, what happened? And he's like, you know what happened. And I was like, what happened? And he's like, you know what happened. And so, you know, we obviously got to deal with Mark and Barbara. And that was crazy. We kind of leveraged that to raise some money, which was much needed because, you know, dude, you want to talk about the school of hard knocks? Like the lessons learned at Grind were real tough.
Yeah.
Essentially, product manufacturing came in and it was way higher than we thought. And so we needed a lot more money. So not only do we have the revenue we'd collected from pre-orders, but a lot of the revenue, or a lot of the financing we had raised needed to go towards manufacturing and marketing and stuff like that. So
when your product goes live on Shark Tank, what happens? Like, what is the result of being live on Shark Tank and having Mark Cuban and Barbara invest in your company?
Yeah, the first thing is just a hockey stick. The traffic just immediately spikes.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, you've got 5,000-10,000 people live on your site. There's no feeling like it because you're just watching the analytics in real time, seeing people add to cart, seeing people initiate checkout, purchases start flying. It was amazing. Our peak number was, I think we had around 25,000 people on the site on that Friday night. Yeah.
Wow.
And that was insane. Really, really cool. You just start getting these random texts too, like from people that you hadn't told about. And they're like, what is that? Are you kidding me? Like, where did this come from? So that part's really cool. But, I think above all else, like just seeing, it's not necessarily about the initial upfront revenue, but it's what that stamp of approval does for you long-term. Yeah. So what was really fascinating about our experience on Shark Tank is we had great traction initially, and we aired on Friday, May 12th of 2021. And a week later, we had an article go live in CNBC, ironically enough. And that article in CNBC actually ended up driving more revenue than the Shark Tank episode. Wow. So our Shark Tank episode got 3.5 million views. Ton of people, people talk about it, to this day, I'll say I used to work at this portable shooting machine company, and they're like,
weren't you on Shark Tank?
Was that the Shark Tank thing? Like that still happens a lot. But what was so interesting, and this is another kind of lesson in audience, is the CNBC article, which goes to, a business enthusiast, probably a wealthier consumer. That article ended up actually driving more attributable revenue than the Shark Tank episode, which was super interesting.
Yeah. What happens when, the Shark Tank episode goes live? That's over, but it keeps, they keep replaying it.
Yeah.
Is it still that same spike? What does it look like on that?
Yeah. So I would say the initial spike was, that number that I mentioned. And then the continuing spike is closer to about a third of that. So the re-airs is kind of what you're talking about. Yeah. So CNBC obviously syndicates Shark Tank and re-airs it periodically. Dude, that happens like once every 6 weeks.
Wow.
It really happens a lot more than I thought.
I didn't know that.
And I can't imagine what that's like for, we had a $2,000 average order value. It's not necessarily something that you see on Shark Tank and just press buy.
Yeah.
And so we had to use it in our own way. But for people that are in that, $50 to $100 range, and, you see it on Shark Tank, you're sold. And I've heard some pretty crazy numbers about what they can do.
You had all the lessons that you learned at the gum company. You're at Grind for 3 years. You do some incredible things. What were some of the biggest takeaways there that were different than the gum company and kind of helped you, again, catapult into your next career path?
Man, I think learning about raising money was probably the most impactful thing. Yeah. We ultimately raised $1.1 million of venture funding in 2021. We participated in Techstars Sports Accelerator, which was amazing. I think we got really, really lucky with who our managing director is. Techstars gets a lot of flack for basically being a diluted accelerator. There's Y Combinator, which has Airbnb, a bunch of really prominent DoorDash, stuff like that. But Techstars has less brand names that have come out of it. And I think that's because your managing director plays the ultimate role in how successful you are, because it's really their network and their relationships and introductions they can make. So our managing director was amazing. Jordan Flegel, program manager, Andrew Hippert, who's gotten promoted now. Dude, those guys, set us up for as much success as possible. Like, we got every VC intro we wanted. We were pitching the Peloton of basketball. We were going to build this gamified experience layered onto the machine where, basically you had a hub of training content that was trackable through your iPhone on your iPhone's camera, and just gamify that whole experience and kind of, try and put a player's training journey into a mobile app that was tied to the product itself. So, raising money was awesome. I think, another lesson in unit economics as well. Even though we're at $2,000, the biggest thing, if you want to be a direct consumer brand, is retention
Mhm.
and repeat orders. That's the most important thing in the lifeblood of any direct to consumer business, because you have to acquire a customer first, but that's very difficult to be profitable. And
that first
you have to
purchase,
continue to do that versus if you acquire someone that loves your brand, like we talk about Represent quite a bit on this show,
Yeah.
I bet they have an insane lifetime value because
Look at Tommy.
every drop that, every drop that they have is, going to get bought by those 1,000 true fans. And what we really struggled with is we tried to have software be the thing that would create recurring revenue
Yeah.
versus the machine
product.
and downstream products. And, and to be very clear, Grind is still growing and doing well, and it's going to continue to do well. The product is fantastic. We have thousands and thousands of people nationwide that love it. But what could have potentially helped us really skyrocket is if we had other ways to extend the customer lifetime value and create more orders out of our existing people that we had acquired. So I think, those are the two fundamental things that when I look at e-commerce business, I judge it by. And it helps me realize like if people are actually doing well or not, because if you don't have those two things, you don't have a chance.
Yeah. Going back to raising money, what was the biggest lesson? What was the biggest takeaway from raising $1.2 million? And how can somebody take away something from, your experience there to then raise money?
It's super clear. You have to run a process that understands that you're going to get 99 no's out of 100. And that's to getting the meeting. And, above all else, raising money is actually very similar to dating in a way. If you like someone too much, then they probably won't like you back. And VCs are the same way. If they feel any sort of thirst out of you, any sort of, I need you to, I need your money, then they run away.
Yeah.
But I've seen time and time again, founders who just kind of lean back and like, look at you and they're like, yeah, man, you can get in this round or not. I don't give a fuck.
Yeah.
Those people end up raising more money, even though they have oftentimes pretty shitty companies, because VCs are people too.
Yeah.
And they can get FOMO'd into stuff so quickly. It's also a space that I see a tremendous amount of groupthink. There's, when things are hot right now, AI, for example, this is a meme, right? Because crypto was probably the most flagrant example where it's like, if you just said the word crypto and you're trying to reinvent
or
something,
AI and shit.
Yeah. Then if you're trying to reinvent something with that new technology, you had a good chance of getting funded if you could engineer that FOMO from the VC.
Yeah.
And if you could, you have to run a process. And what that means is you have to have you have to be very comfortable with lying too, because a lot of these founders will say that they have money committed. What does that mean? It's not funded. It's not wired. You had a conversation with somebody that said,
I'm interested.
I'm
kind
in.
of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm in. Let me know. Or I'm in if so-and-so is in. And then you go to so-and-so and you tell them that they're for sure in, so it's really about just kind of playing the game. I would say above all else, you just have to understand the game, which is you have to FOMO these investors against each other so that they all think that they're not getting in on something because they're desperate for that win, because they know also that they're going to miss 95% of the time.
And then next, you transitioned from building Grind Basketball to your first job, or kind of one of your first jobs, which is at Spellbound, which for anybody that doesn't know is like an interactive email tool.
Yeah.
Why?
I thought that Grind had a ton of potential, and that's why I saw it through. It did. We had a couple of really unfortunate situations happen with regards to supply chain in 2022, and that was just totally out of our control. Some challenges that just happened that required a lot of that capital that we raised to go towards, fixing. And that really constrained our ability to grow because inventory was always a challenge. And we kind of were back in this position where the fundraising market collapsed underneath us. And, that's what happened in 2022. If you look at how many dollars were deployed, it was a pretty steep decline. And when that happened, it was really tough for us to get out of the flywheel of we make a lot of money. That money immediately has to go into more inventory. We make a lot of money, more into inventory. And we were just in this kind of hamster wheel. And because the funding market really dried up for direct-to-consumer brands, that kind of the fundraising experience had taught me what got funded. And it was these moonshot ideas that were going after a massive target market. And I got connected to the team at Spellbound, Akshaya Dinesh, founder, and it was, the most exciting thing I'd ever seen. I mean, I was like, this is, it was interactive email. So the concept was, if you send an email as an e-commerce merchant right now, then someone has to click a button, go to your website, click another button, go check out, go to checkout, make sure that they actually want the purchase. And what I thought was possible was that we were moving that experience into the email.
Yeah.
It seems like a no-brainer for every single,
especially based on like all the data that says email is the most ROI positive channel you could do. And then if you only optimize that to be all the ROI is now in email, it sounds like a no-brainer.
And walking through the decision, I think, because it was a job, right? And I was going from being a founder to being someone who had a job. And a few things played into that decision that maybe being transparent about could actually help people in our audience to think about. But like number one was at Grind, I didn't have money to pay myself a lot of money. I was primarily funding any sort of lifestyle through consulting with other agencies. I was just a media buyer on their team. I had like 3 agencies that were trusting me for media buying, which was cool. And I got to have a lot of experience that fueled my ability to perform at Grind. And so context switching all the time was really tough. Yeah. And I had to like play so many different roles. It was exhausting. And Spellbound was the opportunity to just kind of just consolidate my time into something and have a salary and focus on one outcome. And, doing that was really appealing. But also when you're evaluating a company, I think you need to look at a few things. And above all else is, what is the market it's going after? And what is its opportunity to get funded again? With Spellbound, it had tier 1 VCs. It had very, very strong Silicon Valley VCs that backed it. And I knew that those VCs typically are there to support portfolio companies from not dying. Yeah. They're very involved and they're very incentivized to, if there's anything, like I had a conversation with the partner and I was like, what does it take for us to get to a Series A? The number he told me was not challenging for us to get to. It was not much farther than where we already were. And I was like, holy shit, we're going to be able to raise another round. Mm-hmm. So as far as stability goes, imagine coming from Grind where it's like I see the bank account, it was what it was. Like no one was coming to save us versus, the VC backed mentality is, here's a bunch of money to go after this massive opportunity and go capitalize. As long as you build product, don't care about being profitable, just go for it. And she was a talented founder. She was really smart and she is really smart, and the company's still doing great as well. Like leaving that wasn't anything indicative of where that company is going. It's just ultimately you have to pursue what's best for you.
And what is best for you? Because you were there for roughly a year, I think, or maybe a little over a year.
Yeah, I made it 9 months. I mean,
okay, 9 months. It's a pregnancy.
You mentioned it. Yeah.
It's a pregnancy.
And this is the baby, sweat equity.
Yes.
I think, I mean, honestly, you mentioned this on your podcast where we were talking about your background, but having a job is just hard, man. I mean, I think ultimately I'm an entrepreneur at heart, and I want to pursue something where I'm going to capture the maximum amount of value. And I think you have to be in control of your own decisions. You have to be in control of the information that you choose to make decisions and what you intake. And, if you spot an opportunity and you believe you need to go for it, then you need to go for it.
And what is that opportunity now? Because I think you're someone that's early to trends, and you see something and you're like, we should take advantage of that. That's an arbitrage. I should take advantage of that. Yeah. I think you're seeing it now, and that's what you're building a business on the back end. Yeah. Because you had an agency that was media buying, but now you transitioned it. You pivoted. What is that pivot? What opportunity did you see? And also, after you touch on all that, how else can someone tackle this opportunity if they are a DTC or CPG brand?
Yeah, for sure. The opportunity I saw was when we were at Grind, we created a very specific type of UGC content. It was faceless, and it was incorporating a lot of viral elements that I'd honestly learned from that gum company, where you have to appeal to someone's desires. Yeah. You have to really appeal to something that they deeply want. And so I positioned our product as something that was very aspirational, dream backyard setup, or every Hooper's dream, or stuff like that. And that was basically the video thumbnail and the hook. Yeah. And used the native TikTok voice, so it felt very familiar to the platform.
The robot shit, like the
robot voice. And I didn't have any paid actors on the screen. It was me pulling up to a house and filming the grind machine in action. Yeah. It was shot on iPhone and stuff like that. And the content would go viral. We had like 7 or 8 videos hit 1 million views. Like it was going really well. And what really kind of blew my mind was I would take those videos and put it into our Meta ad account, and it would outperform everything that we had spent like $10,000 on a photo shoot for. And I was like, holy shit, this shot on iPhone content is all you need. In a world where everyone is just peppered with content and ads all the time, it's really important to almost disguise your ads as something that isn't an ad, even though it is. And all of that kind of led to, creating a bunch of content like that for various brands last year. I was moonlighting a little bit, doing some consulting for a few brands with a couple of my buddies who ran an agency, and that was consistently the best performing content. When TikTok released their shop feature, I was like, holy shit, this is now monetizable in an organic way. So that viral video that I made for Grind that got 1 million views without any dollars put into it, all of a sudden, that video could have been monetized without me putting ad dollars into it, without someone going to the link in my bio.
They built the bridge for you.
They built the bridge. And it was another thing, if you're in the services world, how am I going to work with the best brands? Am I going to go get some of their Meta ad creative spend? No, they're going to go to the big boys, the Homesteads, the Common Thread collectives. They're going to go to these really big agencies that have sophisticated teams, deliverables, and charge a massive rate because they're going to perform really well. And building that operation is daunting. And competing for those things would be even more daunting. So I didn't see anyone really doing the TikTok shop content for mainstream brands. And I had some conversations with some of my, over the years I'd worked with a lot of head of growths at these big brands, and I had conversations. So I'm like, what are your resources for this internally? And it's like, we don't really have anything. We have a content person, we have a social media manager, but no one who kind of blends, direct response and virality. And it kind of reminds me how the head of growth has taken over D2C, because the head of growth blends finance and marketing in a way that ensures performance. We are very specifically going after this target customer acquisition because it works within our contribution margin. And that is how we can scale profitably at this budget. That's a growth marketing person. And what wasn't really out there was this performance marketing organic person who kind of creates these organic stories that sell a product and go viral. So my, bet is that we could build the best outsourced version of that, where we are sort of the shoppable content person on your team. And I have I got 7 creators full time. I've got a team of 3 editors, some strategists. So, we're pumping out 300 videos a month right now for our brands. And it's going well. Yeah. A lot of the content's starting to get its first level.
What are some of the common denominators you're seeing in these creators that you hire?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. For me, it's a lot of it is above all else. This is my first time managing people in a real way. Like, at Grind, it was me and Thomas, just like you and I talk about sweat equity, it was like our Slack DMs were just how the company was ran. Now it's managing people, setting expectations, making sure deliverables are met, making sure the quality stays there. So above all else, is someone going to do what they said they'd do? That's the biggest thing. I think content, they have to be comfortable on camera. They have to be comfortable speaking into a camera. They have to pick up some key things that I mentioned, which is a lot of people naturally gravitate towards bland marketing language. And there's something that you wrote about a lot back in the day, which is, and this is common sort of in our echo chamber of marketers on Twitter, but I don't think a lot of people understand, which is clarity. Clarity is king. And if you read a script to your 65-year-old grandma and she's not abundantly clear what the benefits of the product are and who it's for, then that's a failure. And training that has been something that we've really focused on. But I'm finding that as long as someone has a UGC background, as long as they've created UGC content for brands before, then as long as I can show them examples and kind of, massage their ideas of like, okay, we're not necessarily just going to make a UGC video, we're going to make an organic story that sells the product, then that's been pretty effective.
And what's been working on TikTok Shop? I think you touched on something interesting that you said, this is blending direct response and virality. That's a hard thing to do. Very hard thing to do.
Yeah.
Because you're trying to be top of funnel while being like bottom of funnel.
Right.
What's working?
It's all about creating a story around a pain point that your target audience feels.
Can you give me an example?
Yeah. So one of our brands is a hair removal device. And so, when you're talking about being hairy as a woman is certainly something that is annoying, and they don't like shaving.
Yeah.
And if they could be given a pill to just get rid of hair immediately, I bet almost a lot of them would probably take it. I don't have any.
I love that Fi's like the hairiest person on our team's in the back.
Yeah. Yeah, just catching strays
strays
over there. But and you thought you were safe. You're never safe.
Yeah.
But they're a situation where, okay, so that's great, and we can get those pain points and benefits across in an ad very effectively, and they do. They have phenomenal ads. But to go viral on TikTok, a lot of things are driven by stories. And so what's a hyper specific story that we can tell to a specific demographic that will position the product as the solution to not feeling that pain again? And so you want that story to evoke a sense of emotion. You want it to make them feel like, oh shit, I remember that. So, one example would be having razor burn on your bikini line before going out on a boat here in Austin. That's pretty specific,
yeah,
right? But at the same time, if a girl is telling that story, it feels very specific. It feels very authentic. It's not just features, benefits at that point. It's still making sure that it's trustworthy, I think, and that you're not just getting served an ad and cloaked in something. And so instead of leaning into, use it twice a week as an instruction, it's you only have to use it twice a week. Right? It's not just like straight telling someone. It's kind of positioning as if you're talking to a friend.
Yeah.
And you're just saying, it's not that bad. Like I only have to use it twice a week. And it's totally safe. I've looked it up. I've done all the research versus the FDA says it's clear for. And so it's those little kind of tweaks that I've found help videos actually move and convert.
That's honestly great advice.
Yeah. So, whenever you're kind of scripting your content out, that would be my number one piece of advice is if it reads like an ad,
it's not going to work.
Not good.
Yeah, it's not going to work.
That won't work organically. You could still plug that into an ad account and it might work, but that's because you're paying for views. You're not earning them.
Yeah. There's
Organic
a big
content
difference.
has to earn views.
I love that.
And so, yeah.
So wrapping up the episode, it's 2024. You just started Rectify. For people that don't know, Rectify is his agency, his TikTok shop agency that he's doing all this work with Hexclad and other companies for, Huckberry, et cetera. What are your goals for 2024 and on for this company as you try to grow it?
Yeah, dude, as you build first of all, we want to generate 100 million views for our brands. Yeah. Above all else, we want our content to perform. Yeah. And so how do I build a machine that is able to blend direct response and virality? And how do I train just a team of creators that are killers and can like take a brand in? We onboard them very specifically about these situations, like the bikini line thing, come up with like 10 of those situations. And then that's our 2 months of content. We're just going to create variants around those situations. So it's building the machine, I would say. And then I kind of miss building a brand. You always do. It's fun to have that as kind of your central mission. So maybe launching something, but I doubt it. I think I'm just laser focused on, 100 million views plus.
Yeah.
Millions generated in revenue for my brands, because I think the biggest thing is like we take a flat retainer. A lot of TikTok agencies are trying to take an upside on the shop revenue. My brands are too big for that. If I took upside and we did well, then they would be paying me ridiculous sums of money. And so keeping that focus of like we're here to deliver what we were paid to do, and that is not regarding any sort of like we're only going to do it if we make X money.
Focus Brian is a good Brian.
I like it.
Focus Brian's a good Brian.
Yeah, it's definitely more fun.
Brian, this was awesome. I'm great to do this. I learned a bunch about you that I didn't know, and we talk all the fucking time.
Yeah.
So one, I appreciate you kind of giving everybody insight into your life background, what you're doing. The first thing is for anybody that wants to work with you, they do have a DTC brand, they have a CPG brand, they want to take advantage of TikTok Shop. They don't know what to do. They know it has potential. Where can they work with you? Where can they find you? How can they hit you up?
Yeah, I would say the best place, it's rctfy.co, which just infuriates me that I have to spell it out. I remember my good buddy Alex Martin was like, if you have to spell out your website, you've already lost.
Yeah.
But hit me on Instagram at Brian_Bloom. And the link in my bio will take you directly to the site. And yeah, we're not really onboarding a bunch of new clients.
Gotcha.
We're kind of capped right now. I would have to hire more people to take on additional work, but
build up the wait list.
Yeah. So, it's a wait list right now. And it's really for any brand that just doesn't have those internal resources to, because this is a revenue channel now. You know, it used to be something that was kind of just like, oh, let's throw the social media manager at it to make memes. And it's like, no, like, you know,
This is
you
a
really
revenue-
need to focus on
It's
this.
an
to make some-
acquisition channel,
yeah,
yeah.
to make some ROI.
And social media, where can they find you?
Yeah, at Brian_Bloom on IG and at Brian_Bloom1 on Twitter.
That's a wrap. We're back at it normal tomorrow or next week.
Yeah, excited, man.
Peace.